since we're recording and coming to these end of,
Yeah.
and we've already been kind of riffing off a lot of stuff, let's just keep recording for a little while,
Yeah.
and maybe we can get material to just, so you can edit like 2 videos out of this.
Yeah.
Now that we've done that, what are some of the things that we might want to talk about after that? And since it's still rolling, let's just keep going, because we might really use this.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think one, of course, really prescient example is looking at either specifically COVID or like peace and pandemic subfacet of that. I think that when we were discussing before about this idea from Noah Harari, the one of the things that marks humans as uniquely evolutionarily adaptive is our ability to cooperate, and things like a pandemic and potentially something like a radiation disaster are 2 specific types of disasters that affect our ability to cooperate, and that could be an interesting thing to look at.
You mean because of the fact that the virus being transmitted by social contact is requiring us to be antisocial? I mean, it's such an inhuman thing for us to do.
Exactly.
That even though we can cognitively know, or maybe some of us don't know, but at least we've been exposed to the information to know that human contact is not good for us right now.
Yeah.
It is so immensely difficult to maintain it.
Absolutely. And, when I was thinking at the current multi-level disaster in the United States, where we have this discord between the federal government and the state governments and trying to sort out the different approaches, if this disaster was something like a large-scale terrorist attack or a hurricane or a tsunami or something like that, people would have more of a local capacity to do something, right? Like if a bunch of people were hurt somewhere, people could bring food or blankets or just go do that themselves. But we have that it is precisely the social contact which creates and exacerbates the problem, but also the kind of help that's needed isn't the kind of help most people can do, at least at the direct level. The putting people on ventilators and the medical care, it's not the same level of expertise as bringing some food and soap and blankets and water. And that's quite unique, I think, in terms of disasters and response to dramatic disruptions to the system.
Mm-hmm. Right. And there's also the maybe higher level of actually doing research on, say, the vaccines, the possibility of a vaccine. Most people can't do that. There's maybe a small group of people scattered around the world could maybe elaborate.
Right. It's much harder to drip one up in your lab, your home lab.
Yeah, and so there is a real feeling of impotence if sort of sitting at home waiting for those people to solve it, invent a vaccine.
Yeah.
Right. There's the same kind of thing. Like you can say, if you're really chomping at the bit, you can go and start after a hurricane, you start cleaning the street, picking up debris, or something like that. I need to put the tarp on the roof or something. Don't let you feel like you're making small progress.
And what I've seen in various news and podcasts and from people I've talked to, there's a big experiment going on now on how do we really work virtually or remotely, and that many people have been doing this before, but how do you replicate some of what that being together in the physical space does? And so I know some offices have instituted kind of like a Zoom or Skype coffee break or water cooler thing, where it's a 20-minute thing where everyone is on Zoom at that time, but no work discussion is allowed. Nothing you're currently on. Trying to build on that sense of relating that you would normally get in an office, with I think a lot of supporting research that this is really what generates creativity, and most new ideas, of course, come around the coffee pot and not when you're sitting at your desk.
Oh, totally. And I actually need to start doing that. I mean, well, I kind of do that on a one-on-one basis with friends. Yeah. And even this kind of thing that we do here. I mean, that serves this purpose, my own intellectual curiosity to want to engage with a friend and to have a few people in on it. That would definitely be a kind of thing that I would say. Mm-hmm. I wanted to pick up on another thought that you had made about the disconnect in the USA between the federal and state governments. I heard that there's this there's the state coalitions that are So the USA is like separating into these de facto factions.
This is really interesting.
Coast,
I
think this is super fascinating.
It's a subnational regional organization.
Yeah, it's almost like some kind of like under reality science fiction novel where like the South won the Civil War and the USA is divided into different factions, not the continental USA.
And I mean, right now it doesn't really seem that there is antagonism between these subnational organizations of states, but it's more directed as antagonism towards the federal government. But given the history of the U.S., it is a little bit disconcerting when you see this movement back to what would be a structure that we had that didn't go very well in the past.
More and more, I think every day I feel the topics like civil liberties and basic income become more and more relevant. And I think like the idea of like individualism, collectivism, civil liberties, the ability to hold accountable, these are at like front and center issues in the USA. And I think in a lot of other countries too. I say the USA because there's so much coverage of protesters, because I may be sympathetic to their arguments, question the timing or maybe the means. Yeah, I think these are important discussions to be having, and really important now because there is the trend that governments do not give up powers once they have them. I think this is a super relevant issue for us right now. Yeah. And then the other one, the basic income or just guaranteed income. Like, well, this is an idea that went from like fringe left-wing politics to something that's actually happening out of necessity.
To me, this is one of the most astounding parts of this. Exactly what you're saying. Yeah. Like how many of these things that we've always been told are impossible, and then we just find a way to do them. So universal basic income is one. Another is people who are in jail who don't really need to be there. Why don't we just let them go? And apparently that is a thing that can happen. Or why don't we just make insulin affordable? That can happen. Apparently all the stuff that they've said is impossible is possible.
I think those are really good examples. Yeah, and something like basic income. I think it's probably a good idea. I have a lot of questions about how it would roll out and things like that. But I think like the one of the core ideas now, just like you said, is that wait a minute, this went from a pretty radical and fringe idea to something that is not absolutely universal because not everybody is being able to get government checks. Yeah. A lot of people are. So it's a massive experiment in this. And what are the consequences? What's the fallout?
And you can see it in the U.S. in the span of 1 year. Like Andrew Yang, when he was running for president, that was his main thing. Everyone was like, this wacko. And then now it's a very real consideration in less than a year.
Yeah, the Yang gang was before its time. Yeah, I have the source if I want to cite it. But it was talking about the experiments in universal basic income. And saying that, because one of the arguments is that if people start getting money, they will stop working. And actually, that in one experiment where people were given money, the only group that actually reduced their working hours were people who were students. So, or otherwise
occupied.
Occupied or doing something important and retraining and having. So and who knows exactly what that meant, but I would assume that it meant that they were able to focus more on their studies, which I think arguably they should be doing anyways.
Right.
What about also like just speaking out loud and not just like kind of just talking about it on a meta level, like brainstorming, but just like actually talking about it. We talk about like we just define like this transrational approach.